My name is Sophie Charlton, and I'm a third-year vet student at UC Davis. I am going to share with you the story of my veterinary journey. Like every vet student, I grew up with the best pet ever. Just like James Harriet, I was the proud owner of a Border Terrier. Hamish helped me overcome my fear of dogs, and the story I wrote of this transformation from fear to love won a medal at a Minnesota statewide competition. Hamish became my perpetual accompanist and constant friend. His soulful howling lit a fire inside me and inspired my presidential campaign with the slogan, "Pigs for pets, not footballs." I demanded life sentences for dog abandonment, and that all dogs be allowed to sleep on beds. Maybe it was a tad extreme, but it's still not the worst presidential platform I've seen. This young patriot's love for animals showed no boundaries, and I jumped at the opportunity to interact with creatures from the large and furry to the small and scaly. Thoroughly enamored with dogs, I began volunteering at my local shelter, falling in love with about 99% of the inhabitants. I finally took another one home, and she's right here. Growing up in the hometown of the Mayo Clinic, I dabbled with the idea of human medicine. It's pretty hard not to, living in Med City. At high school graduation, my head was spinning with the choices that lay ahead. But when I moved away from that medical tundra, my doubt melted away. I could clearly see that my true passion was always with animals, and that they had a stronger need. It's easier to care about your own species. Lots of people do. In college, I pursued my other passion of art. I managed to include animals in just about every project, from sketches to photographing Dog Fest in San Francisco. I loved conservation photography and the power of sharing stories in a meaningful way to infinitely increase the impact of science. Upon college graduation, I was desperate to get my hands on the African wildlife I had always dreamt of, so I spent a summer at the Lilongwe Wildlife Center in Malawi. My first time monitoring anesthesia was on a hyena captured from the president's grounds. When I entered vet school, I jumped at an opportunity for student research in Tanzania, combining my interests in wildlife, public health, and serving rural communities. I conducted bovine tuberculosis research with pastoralist herds living at intense wildlife interfaces. I was inspired by their coexistence with animals both domestic and wild. I was also constantly humbled, as when I mistook an entire herd of sheep for goats. I also learned from the gorilla doctors in Rwanda how a community can be transformed by its animals. I dream of having that kind of impact with my work. In vet school, I've performed a necropsy on a mountain lion, vaccinated great horned owls, sedated wild 60-pound beavers, and served the most dedicated pet owners at the homeless clinic in Sacramento, and I'm not even done yet. There have been some lows to match the highs. I sliced my nerve and required surgery. I was fearful for my dexterity, but managed to perform my first ever space surgery the same day I got my stitches out. That is one scrub I would prefer to never repeat, but that entire ordeal cemented just how much I wanted to be able to do this. Nothing brings me greater joy than spending time in nature with Maisie. We are both curious about the wild animals roaming our shared planet. There is so much going on in her head, and I think we have a whole lot to learn from all of our fellow creatures. I plan to do everything I can to protect the most needy and vulnerable, and share their incredible stories so that we can continue to be enriched by their presence. I also like variety in my life, and as much as I love the mountains, sometimes Maisie and I decide it's time to make a road trip to the desert. I seek this variety in my veterinary career as well. I want to work with shelter animals like Maisie, but also the moose who live in her backyard. And I can, and I think that's the coolest job ever. Maybe my path will wind on for a few more years to get the training I need, but I can't imagine a more worthwhile pursuit. The scholarship could help me repay my loans as I continue forward, honing my clinical and research skills. It would allow me to confidently continue to choose the path less traveled.